So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to take a quick look at our newest bow that was released with update 29.5, Deimos Arcana, the Proboscis Cernos, because apparently you can really never have enough Cernos, so we got yet another variation of it. But first things first, how do you get your hands on this? Well, this is actually a market weapon, so you can simply get the blueprint from the market. The blueprint itself will cost you 30,000 credits, and to build the weapon you have to invest 15,000 credits, 1 Mutalist Cernos, 1600 polymer bundles, 5 Niton extract, and 25,000 nanospores. So if you don't have the Mutalist Cernos, it's going to be kind of like a 3-step process where you first have to get the Cernos, then you turn that into the Mutalist Cernos, and then you take that and turn that into the Proboscis Cernos. But once you finally get it, you will see that it is of course a bow that requires at least Mastery rank 15 to use, and it does 279 damage with the arrow, 145.1 out of which is slash, 103.2 is impact, and 30.7 is puncture, and 1003 viral damage with an explosion that has a radius of 7 meters with 50% fall off and a detonation delay of 1.7 seconds. It is not, however, just a standard shoot and boom. The mechanic is a little bit more unique and very cool. So the way it works is you first fire the arrow, which does the arrow damage. I know, duh, right? But then a Nidus-esque larva will sprout from the arrow, drawing enemies towards the arrow, and this will do damage 2 times, and it's also the arrow damage. This is why I mentioned it in the beginning. And finally, after these 2 ticks of damage, the larva will detonate, doing the explosion damage. And this is why there's that 1.7 second delay on the explosion, is the time it takes for the larva to draw the enemies in and detonate. And other than that, both instances of the damage have a very low 7% crit chance, a below average 1.9 times crit multiplier, though they do have a very nice 43% status chance, and the bow comes with 9 shots in total and fairly low draw speed. Also, as you may have seen in the simulacrum clip, the larva will stagger you upon detonation, though I have never managed to get it to knock me down. Now, because of the way the weapon works, I have 2 different builds. One focuses a little bit more on the explosion and the other one on the ticking damage. So let's start off with sort of the feels good explosion setup first. And both of these require 3 Forma, which are 3 Vs to run, though the second one could use another Forma if you want to max out the Exiles mod. So for this one we have Serration for damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, Heavy Caliber for even more damage, and the negative accuracy actually helps because it spreads out the arrow so you have more reach with the tentacles. Then we have Vile Acceleration for a mad amount of fire rate, which feels amazing because, as I've said, the draw speed here is a little bit low. Then we follow that up with Vigilante Supplies for the ammo mutation and overcrit bonus from the set, Vigilante Armaments for even more multi-shot on top of Split Chamber, which I think works really well because it gives you a 50% chance to fire a third arrow rather than having a 10% chance to not fire the second one with Split Chamber. Then we top it off with Thermite Rounds for Heat and Status and Malignant Force with High Voltage for Corrosive and Status. The idea behind this setup is to use Corrosive and Heat with the 2 ticks of damage that happen before the explosion to soften the enemies up for the explosion so we can do as much damage as possible. And I also wanted to make the weapon feel a little bit better and just be able to fire off as many arrows as I can as fast as possible so I can get as many kablosions as possible. So I was basically trying to maximize the amount of fun I can get out of the weapon without sacrificing too much damage so I can still run a normal star chart stuff and even do sorties. But with a setup like this, there are of course some downsides, so the scaling isn't particularly great, so while it's really cool and really fun in a low level mission, so once the enemies get too beefy, there isn't much you can do. They will just take too many arrows to take down and you will run out. But that only matters if you're regularly doing very high-end stuff, so mainly Steel Path. If you're just doing normal star chart stuff with a Kuva mission or a Fissure mission or even a sortie mission every now and then, you can run this no problem. The second build, however, is a little bit more on the spicy side of things. So we start off by adding Flanked Fusillade so that the arrow hit as well as the 2 ticks of damage before the explosion have a higher chance of proccing Slash. Then we run Malignant Force and Thermite Rounds for gas damage and status, and Rifle Aptitude for even more status. Now this one has some scaling. It's not amazing versus armor because gas is generally not great versus armor, but it will still do just fine. It's just a little bit slower because we don't have the fire rate and you have to wait for the damage over time to do the damage rather than the explosion. Plus, thanks to gas, the damage will scale based on the number of enemies that are drawn in, so the single target is kind of ass. But oh lordy, when you take it up against the infestation, it is quite hilarious, and the same goes for the corpus. They just kind of explode. This is the setup you want to run for Steel Path, though bring a nice sidearm or a nice melee weapon for the Acolyte, because as I've said already, the single target is a bit on the side of things. You can still kill the Acolyte, especially if you draw some enemies towards it and then just cover it in gas clouds, but I would still prefer a nice sidearm instead. But anyway, what do I actually think about the Proboscis Cernos? Well, quite simply, I love it. It's not just my favorite Cernos variant in the game, it's probably my favorite bow in the game right now that the Kuva Brahma has had a bit of a nerf and it's just not as much fun as it used to be. Hell, might even be one of my favorite weapons in the game. It is that damn good. Especially with the first build, the feels good one that has vial acceleration, so the draw speed is much faster. It's just amazing. You should definitely pick this up. It's just... What? It doesn't work with what? No. That can't be. One star.